Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to our distance learning program. I hope you really enjoy your 10-day holiday, which is the whole weeks. And now it's time for us to get back to our classroom learning environment, right? So as you can see on the slideshow right here, this is the lesson which we will discuss the language structure on our Blueprint 4 lesson. So the language that we are going to study is the zero conditionals. So to answer the question, what is zero conditional and why we need to learn all of this? So let's look at the content here. So as you can see on the content right here, there are a few points that we will discuss. First of all, we will look at the concept of conditional. What is conditionals? And then there are different type of conditional sentences, but the focus of this lesson is on the zero conditional. That is why we will only study the form of the zero conditionals and the usage of zero conditional only. So without any further ado, let's look at the first point, which is what is conditional sentence. If we see the word conditionals, it refers to clauses introduced with the word if, right? With the word if right here. So the main type of conditionals, there are three types. There are four actually. We have the type 0 or zero conditionals. We have type 1 or the first conditionals, second conditional or type 2, and the last one is type 3, which is the third conditional. But as I said, we will only focus on the type 0, which is the zero conditionals. If we look at the structure of the conditional clauses, all of those consist of two parts. So the first part we call the if clause or the hypothesis, or we can say the predictions or the assumption, which is the if clause. And then we have the main clause, which is the result clause, also the result of our hypothesis. The rule of using comma here, when the if clause comes before the main clause, the two clauses are separated with a comma. So you will see these in the actual sentences in the next slide. So here are some examples that we use the zero conditionals. So if you go to school now, as you can see, this is the if clause. There is no student in the classroom, and this is the result clause or the main clause. As you can see, we have the clause that start with the word if and separated by comma right here. So this structure we call conditionals or zero conditional. Another example, there is no student in the classroom if the COVID-19 still spread across the world. So again, if you look at this sentence, there is one mistake that I would like to point out. As I said, we use comma to separate the two clauses in this conditional clause. When the if clause comes at the beginning of the sentence. However, if you look at this, so this is the correct form, and if you look at this, there is no student in the classroom. Is it the if clause? No, it is not. It is the main clause. And the if clause followed by the main clause right here. It means that we don't need to use comma right here. So comma only used when the if clause come at the beginning of the conditional sentence right here. So look at another sentence. If you are hungry, you should not eat fast food, right? Again, if clause at the beginning of our sentence, and then we need to use comma, and this one is wrong. Another example, we must study hard if we want to pass the exam. Sure, the if clause come at the end of the sentence, so we don't need to use comma right here. So the basic concept of conditional or zero conditional refer to any sentences that has two parts, which is the if clause and the main clause. So we have looked at some of the example already, and we learned how to use comma in conditional sentences, right? So the rule to use comma is very simple. When the main clause come before the if clause, then there is no comma is necessary, which means you don't need to put comma at all. So look at the example here. If the weather is good tomorrow, which is the if clause, and then we need to put comma right here. We will go to the beach. So this is the first conditional, but we can relocate the main clause and put it in the beginning of our sentence, and then we don't need to use comma at all right here, okay? So moving on to our main focus of the lesson today, which talk about zero conditionals. As I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, there are four types of conditional sentences. First conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and this one is the zero conditional. So zero conditional is the easiest one, because if you look at the example or the structure here, we can use it or when it rains, the road gets slippery and dangerous. If you look at the structure of these, we use only the present tense, which is the present simple tense in the zero conditional clause. So here another example here. The water is everywhere in the city if or when it rains. So this is the structure which use only the present tense. But why do we need to use such this structure? Alright, so for the zero conditional, as you can see here, they talk about the facts. When we talk about the fact, something is 100% sure when or if something happened in the if clause, we need to use this structure to represent that something or the result clause, which is the main clause, is real. Here, if or when it rains, which is the if clause, or we can call it the hypothesis clause, when it rains, and then the result clause, the water is everywhere in the city, which is real as our everyday situation now. So here you can also locate the if clause and the main clause. You can put the if clause in front of the sentence, and you can also put the if clause at the end of the sentence, but be careful with the use of comma. Another fact that we can use zero conditionals to talk about here, the sunrise when it is morning. Again, we can use when instead of it, or we can use when instead of if in this situation or in this type of sentences. So if the sun set over there, there is the west for sure. So the sun always set at the west. So this is the facts, and it is always true. That's why we use zero conditionals. So let's look at the form of zero conditional in detail. In the if clause, we use if plus present simple. So here, if you want to stay healthy, which is present simple tense, and the main clause also written in the present simple tense as well. So you must eat vegetable, which represent that if you want to stay healthy, it is true, it is 100% that you need to eat vegetable to stay healthy. So again, to recap what we have discussed so far, the zero conditional is used to talk about something which is always true, right? And the structure of zero conditional is very simple. We use if plus present simple, comma plus present simples. So everyone, that's it for our first video lesson about zero conditionals, and I hope you enjoy this video lesson. If you have any questions or you are not sure with any particular point in this slideshow, you can ask your homeroom teacher for further explanation or clarifications. But for now, I would like all of you to have a short break and we will come back to continue our second sessions.